Welcome back to the Hardforking channel. Very special show for you today. Joining us for a second time, we've got Jordan from Waters Above Crypto. Welcome back, Jordan.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And a face familiar to many of you, Maggie. Great to see you as always.
Once in a blue moon, a beaver moon, snow moon, whatever moon.
Funny you mentioned moons. When I say we've got a special show today, we've had Jordan on before, and it was an extremely popular show. So backed by popular demand. Jordan, you're a big proponent of the Wyckoff method. Many of the viewers are very familiar with that. What they won't be familiar with is the use of other tools, esoteric knowledge, as you put it. Gematria, numerology, and astrology in your trading. So we're all fascinated to learn more about this before we get into the charts. So could you maybe tell us a bit more about each of these tools that you employ?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of people that are trying to learn a little bit more about what's going on in our world will study, zodiac or astrology. And that just seems to be like a natural proclivity for those that are more open-minded. And although I never really dove too deep down that, I was studying a lot of the mythologies. So kind of like where we're getting these stories from and how they tie into these big players in our game, whether it's, the names of the planets or some of the zodiac names, et cetera. And this all comes back to time. So like how we, look at the month of the year, or even the year or the age, or, however you're looking and perceiving time itself. So I started studying more into the creation of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin, of course, is algorithm based. It's on a blockchain, and this is going through a cycle of completion of blocks. And after a certain amount of blocks are completed, we have a halving event, and then the amount of blocks in the blockchain get halved. And I was just seeing this sort of repeatability through studying the charts and kind of just how it seems to all be programmed in with the scarcity model. So then the literal kind of like connections between who created Bitcoin, Bitcoin being created by Satoshi Nakamoto, and Satoshi, or anything that starts with SAT, comes back to Saturn. And Saturn is looked at as Father Time, or the king of Earth, the god of Earth. And this all started to kind of make a big connection with me. And I essentially just went down the rabbit hole of seeing how Gematria fit into it, which has to deal with the numerical value of letters. So like if I was to take your name and I was to write it all out, Sean starts with the letter S. S has a numerical value, and then we could just go from there and we could add it all up, and you could reduce these numbers and you could have a lot of fun with them. But essentially what I figured out was there's a very simple way of doing it with a calculator online, and then there's a little bit more advanced way, which is called Chaldean numerology or Chaldean Gematria. And I started to just implement this whole system in my work through coming back to these mythologies. So kind of implementing these esoteric principles all together with the code of Gematria, and trying to figure out, well, okay, can I apply this to what's happening in these charts and these cryptos and these stocks or whatever that's going on here? And I essentially started to come up with an undeniable outcome, which is there's a lunar cycle that's playing every month. We have a new moon and a full moon. This is showing us that we have what I consider a microcycle top in any of our coins, always around new moons, and then around full moons it's the opposite. We tend to get bearish energy, like we're seeing today. We have a full moon tonight, transitioning into tonight, and we saw a big pullback in the market. And I was able to determine this pullback based off of a lot of things, not to get too complicated, but it's the 46th week of the year, and we could perceive this number as 4 6s, and 4 6s gives us 24. And 24 is the amount of hours we have in a day. It's like one of the most important cycles that we could possibly think of. And through this number 24, it connects back into a lot of the Gematria that I've shown people in my work. But needless to say, we saw a bigger pullback happening today on this exact day. And so I've just been kind of implementing all of these little things into my TA to be able to come up with some rhyme or reason as to why it's happening. It seems to be the hardest part about doing technical analysis is, how do we know which direction we're going to go? How far are we going to go? And I'll give a very quick example just to kind of move on to your next question. But today, the lowest point we saw in Bitcoin was $56,565. So that's 56.56. And Bitcoin and Gematria, BTC equals 56. The lowest point we hit this price at today was at 12.12. So this whole code is just showing itself. It happens all the time. Like if we look at the May 19th pullback that we got, it hit the exact low at 9:11 a.m. New York time. This is always happening. We'll see a high come in at 3:33 p.m., a low come in at 1:11 a.m. And it's just happening time and time again because the New York time zone, the Eastern time zone, is what runs the entire world's economy through the New York Stock Exchange in Washington, D.C. So that's another thing a lot of people don't know. They don't even know the clock to use when they're perceiving the time of the market, but that is undoubtedly the time of the market.
Interesting.
I have a question. Jordan, could you explain a little bit more about how you think Bitcoin was released onto the world? What's behind all of that, do you reckon?
Well, I was like, it's very multifaceted because I think the NSA actually designed it with a couple other people involved. It's probably way older than we think it is. Like when we think of what Bitcoin is and blockchain technology, we think of the year 2008, and we start to come back to this time of like the release of the white paper and, you know, all of this like kind of, yeah, it's like you could even look at Wikipedia and you could probably get a lot of this information. Anyways, the answer to your question was through basically, I was seeing a lot of things going back to NSA, going back to the Pentagon, going back to essentially them just leaking out that they're utilizing some sort of digital currency system to move money between each other and to not necessarily do any illegal activity, but just to have a testing protocol for the future economy, this economy that's blockchain based. So it may be way older than we actually are aware. And I've heard like some really interesting things from some Federal Reserve chairmen too, several, maybe 20, 30 years ago, discussing internet money, if you will, just some sort of internet only cashless money that it exists on a digital ledger only. It's really fascinating, and people should definitely do more research into that. But needless to say, when they designed cryptocurrency, well, Bitcoin in and of itself, the first, like, how would you say it? The initial blocks that were mined were called the Genesis block. So of course, in the Bible, we have the beginning of the Bible is called Genesis, right? Genesis 1:1. And they just, with all the words they were using, it was pretty fascinating to start looking into the code itself as well. They were kind of like programmers speaking back and forth with each other through the blocks. So there's a lot to get into with that. But what I will say is that what changed my whole outlook on everything was this recent halving, when the halving got brought down to 144 blocks mined per day. So 144 is half of the number 72, and Bitcoin in Gematria equals 72. Excuse me. So I was just really fascinated with this number of 144. You know, you could look into the Bible and the significance of this number, 144. There's a cryptocurrency called Algorand, which actually has the 144.
I bought it yesterday.
Awesome. Good job. Because I think it is doing pretty well, recovering pretty well. But yeah, when I saw the 144 in Algorand, I definitely got excited about it. There's a couple cryptos out there that have this number, and it comes back in biblical speak to the chosen ones, like which ones are the chosen ones. And if anyone here knows about Plan B, really important, you know, stock to flow model. I was a big proponent of utilizing Plan B and the stock to flow model. And there might have been other people who helped him out with this. I'm not entirely sure, but you know, definitely respect Plan B for doing this chart, because it was very influential in the beginning for me. And then I started looking into something called the logarithmic growth curve chart. So these two charts are available through Plan B. I think it's called Back to Bitcoin or something like that .com. But anywho, this logarithmic growth curve chart shows us the tops that we get. And the top of the logarithmic growth curve chart in December of 2021, which is coming up next month, is $144,000 for Bitcoin. So I started to just like get fixated on this number, and it started showing up in all of my decoding and everything. So that was where, when I had your last interview with you guys, I told you that I see Bitcoin going to 144,000 on December 4th. And I think you titled the video that. So Yeah, I didn't just pull that out of nowhere. You know, it had a very, it was very reasonable, even for tech analysis people, like people that are really into reading charts, who respect the work of Plan B and understand that every cycle we have diminishing returns. You can see with all of these charts that it makes more sense that we would get to the mid 100K range rather than these absurd like $300,000 calls that people are giving. And one final thing about that, if you take the amount of Bitcoin supply and you multiply it by $144,000 Bitcoin, you're going to get, I believe it's $2.7 trillion. And remember what I told you about Bitcoin and Gematria, it equals 72. Well, 27 is the reverse of 72. So when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, this is coded. It's all coded. There's almost no human element anymore about what's going on in this market. And if you go and study Amazon and some of these tech stocks from back in the day, you're going to see this code actually worked with them as well. Like Gematria is not new. It's thousands of years old. So I'm just starting to like see how serious it is and how important it is to take seriously when you're looking at a market or when you're looking at pretty much anything that happens in our reality.
So I just wanted to add to that. It was something that you said the other day on one of your videos that Bitcoin was released onto the world as an algo, and that algo is based on Gematria, astrology, numerology, and technical analysis. And when you combine all of those together, for someone like you can see these patterns. For example, I always hear you talking about 58 days from the previous, I hope I've got this right, from the previous low to the next one, and then you expect a dip, and literally it happens. 56 to 58 days anyway, but 56 days, if I remember correctly, that's related to one of the planets, because there's 3 planets involved. You've got the sun and the moon, which are at the top, and they rule the financial world. I'm just recalling all of this back from, things that you've said over the past. And then you've got Jupiter, Saturn, and Venus, who are controlling the financial markets. Maybe you want to explain a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So 56 comes back to Isis, and Isis is our moon. It's our divine feminine. So that energy is very important because like it's the life cycle, right? And Bitcoin is on this cycle as well. And it's undeniable now. We've had every single full moon in this market was a pullback. And some of them are more dramatic than others. But I think we were talking about this before we kicked off recording. Every single number sequence has the number before it and the number after it are powerful. So the example I gave Sean was the number 22. It's a master number. 22 means it could mean master builder, master destroyer. You know, it's up to debate. A lot of people have a lot to say about it, numerologists out there. But just to be simple, this example of having the 3 days, the one day before it, the day of, and the day after, this has given us a little window of time to be able to make, be a little bit more flexible about the calls. So this 56 to 58 day bottoming structure that I've kind of exposed, it just happened again. Like today is literally 58 days from the lowest Bitcoin price we've seen in September before we had the. So if you bought Bitcoin 58 days ago, you bought the absolute lowest price in the last pretty much 3 to 4 months. Like, no one would have been able to expose that unless they were looking at the code of what's going on here. No technical analyst could have ever been able to look at that and give that call out, because there is no TA for such thing. So ISIS equals 56, and then Bitcoin comes back to 56 with the ticker symbol BTC. So if anyone had a Gematria calculator out there, which, by the way, the Gematria calculator that I use is on gematrinator.com. Maybe you guys could link it in the description. But so yeah, Bitcoin has a direct tie to the moon. And because Bitcoin is the main energy of this entire market called cryptocurrency, that means when Bitcoin makes a move, the other coins make a move. So if you could kind of just figure out when Bitcoin's going to have a really big volatile energy and going up or going down, and you could predetermine all of this with the lunar cycle. So I don't know exactly if I answered your question though about the 56 to 58 days. Did I?
Yeah, I think very well, because if you understand TA, which I think a lot of these viewers do, they will be able to measure that, from the low to, and then they can prove for it. They can look at it for themselves.
I'll also put a link to that video. I actually just rewatched it again this morning, and yeah, it's pretty bang on. So I think it's worth it.
Yeah, like I want everyone to like who is on a chart, you know, go ahead to November 26th of 2020. It was around Thanksgiving time in the United States. And again, like I told everyone that New York time runs this market, period, end of story. This any American holidays play a huge role, because why do we get 3-day weekends in the stock market? Because of America. So American time runs the market, particularly New York. So we had a huge pullback around that ritual of Thanksgiving last year. And then if you measure 57 days out, you have your first low in the structure. Then you could do this again, measuring from January 27th over 57 days later, you get the March lows. If you take the lows of February, late February, and you go over 56 days later, you could see the April lows. You could just do this over and over again. And the only way you would have been able to get to 56 is through Isis, is through knowing Gematria. And Isis is our moon. And every time we're around that 56 days, of course, we're also around a full moon. So that full moon tends to be the bearish energy in the market, and the new moons tend to be the bullish energy in the market.
So what do we have coming up tomorrow? We've got the red moon tomorrow, right?
Yeah, and also it's like the longest eclipse, partial lunar eclipse in like over 200 years, I believe. So it's a very dramatic energy. Eclipses are huge. So I learned this actually through the experience of an eclipse, because we had an eclipse around, I believe it was late May. And then we had back-to-back eclipses, meaning that we had another one in June, very early June. So this was like there was a huge pullback before this event. And for anyone who knows a little bit more about, I guess you just say astrology, Mercury retrograde plays a huge role in this market as well. Like we had a Mercury retrograde back in late January of 2021, which followed by a insane straight line breakout for Bitcoin. Like it literally just went up 100% in like 20 something days. We also recently just had a Mercury retrograde, and we saw the same exact fractal play out where Bitcoin just went up in a straight line, you know, from pretty much late September all the way till mid-October. Bitcoin just broke out in a straight line. And this was at a time where a lot of people were very fearful of the market. Like if you go back to that time frame of September full moon, there was a lot of negative sentiment in the market. Fear and greed index was showing fear. Yeah, but I guess my community was lucky because we just bought that dip. We knew it was going to go up. So
I've also seen some just quickly, Maggie. I've also seen some really interesting analysis recently. Pretty much every month around the 20th, we've experienced a pretty significant pullback, followed by a big upward movement. Obviously, we've got the moon coming into play on the 20th. Also, I've heard you talk about a potential major move upwards around the 23rd, 24th. Any thoughts on these pullbacks that we're experiencing on the 20th? It could just be the third week with the options expiring every month around that date. That could be at play there. But anything?
Yeah. Well,
any other thoughts on that might be about?
I think that's great that you brought that up, because I have had some people challenge me on this idea that we're only getting the pullbacks because of options, right? And you know what proves them wrong? Go look at 2020's price charts, and you'll see that our pullbacks were on full moons, and the full moons were in reverse last year. So it's not options. Options are just a bunch of data to fill people's heads to think that's why we're doing certain things. But in actuality, the market's moving because of the energy of what's going on in our world, which has to do with the cosmos. It has to do with the planets. It has to do with, astrology. So if you go back to the September 2020 pullback, Bitcoin created a structure where we were hearing across the board, everyone was very bullish. They thought that Bitcoin was going to start breaking out in September. But what they didn't know is they weren't aware of Rosh Hashanah. They have no idea about Hebrew holidays. So we got a huge pullback on September 3rd. What was September 2nd? A full moon. Options expiry was like 5, maybe 10 days before that. So if you were going off of options, you would have got really in a bad trade. You would have went long probably, and then you got liquidated. But if you knew about the full moon, you would have been able to prepare yourself for some intense volatility. So I would say that there's nothing wrong with looking into this idea of options and how they play their role. Like, but once something becomes spoken about quite regularly, I start to take it like the opposite direction and how serious I take it. So unless I could see it happening in the charts and in the data, I don't really give it any time. I and I guess that's helped me a lot just in general as a human being. You know, like if you pay attention to the news all day, you're probably going to get on the wrong side of reality. Like, you know, if you pay attention to your own experiences and what you're seeing with your own eyes and what you're actually going through as a human, you're going to see a totally different outcome.
Yep.
You could dramatize everything on the internet to a degree that is almost unfathomable. But if enough people agree in it and it's popular, well, it becomes truth.
Actually, to that point that you've just made, and Sean, it's interesting you say that, Sean, because you're right. The last 2 to 3 moons were around the 20th. They weren't quite the 20th. But if you actually look at the whole list of full moons from January of this year to where we are today, they decline in dates, if you see what I mean. So we started with the 29th of January this year as being a full moon, but every month it goes down a few days. So by August, we were already at the 22nd of August as the full moon, and the 21st of September, and then the 20th of October. And then, today, my time, which is Friday, is the 19th of November. And then next month, it's also the 19th. But of course, we're going on New York time as being, that's the time you follow when it comes to the full moon, because we're a few we're a few hours ahead here in Asia, and you're even further ahead, Sean.
For sure.
So Jordan, I've heard you talk about we're in the last stage of a bull run. Am I correct in saying this 144 early December? You think we're blowing up there and heading down?
Yeah, so I think the way that this market's going to shake out, like, first of all, I've been in the market now long enough to the point where I don't really care where it goes.
Yep.
And I wish more people would like adopt that way of looking at an investment. Because if you asked Warren Buffett, like if I was able to talk with Warren Buffett about his investment thesis and I told him everything that we've been talking about thus far, he would think it like we're mentally insane. He'd be like, why do you care to time a market so specifically? He would think I'm a maniac. And the reason that he and Charlie Munger and some of the greats, Lynch, are where they are is because they're investors, right?
Yep.
So a lot of people that stumble into crypto, what destroys them, and I feel like this is way important to talk about because of where we are in the cycle. People are just going to FOMO in with their life savings. They're going to take a loan. They're going to, they bought Shiba at the top a couple weeks ago. They're going to do whatever it takes to follow the herd. And then when things go against them, they blame everyone, right? So if I feel like perhaps my idea of 144K Bitcoin, the reason I'm saying it is not because of my opinion. It's because of Plan B's charts. It's because of, doing so much work and compilation of data. And I don't want these sorts of things to be looked at like a meme, It's like, I feel like 144K Bitcoin is going to be like a meme. And that's really sad because if it goes to 120, we still made money. If it goes to 90, we still made money. So I guess like I just want to start out with that because it's a philosophy thing. It's a mindset thing. And too many people are too caught up in this idea that we're 100% going to do something. And that's not how markets work. There is the element of surprise. It just so happens that Bitcoin has 2 back-to-back bull runs where it hits its all-time high on a December new moon 4 years apart. So of course, we could have something like an extended cycle. Of course, we could hit our top a little bit earlier. Maybe we go to 200,000 Bitcoin. I don't really know. I just wish everyone like the best. And I hope that everyone is okay with when those numbers come. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to take profits, or are you going to listen to everyone else's opinion on this, that, or whatever, and not consider where you're at with your investment? So those are like nuggets of wisdom that I want more people to adopt and stop being so focused on prices and dates and, because this is the kind of stuff that perhaps Maggie knows, because I know she has been a longtime follower of my work. I've had a lot of people, when we get to a full moon, they start like showing up to my door with pitchforks and daggers, being like, we're not falling down. And then 2 days later, we get a pullback.
Mm.
And I'm just like, do you see where patience plays such? Because I'm looking at this market like Warren Buffett. I'm just calm. I'm chilling. I'm chilling.
Oh,
The
Jordan,
thing
that is such a good point, because that, if that's one thing I'm feeling at this moment in time, and it is honestly because of you and because of the work that you do, that I don't get concerned these days if the market's up or down or whatever. I actually feel quite calm about the whole thing. And people, I immediately get the phone calls. I'm sure Sean does as well. You know, what's happening? What shall I do? And I'm saying, just calm down, relax, go make a cup of tea. It's all going to be fine.
Yeah, it's like if you woke up today and your investments are down $200,000, but your daughter is in the room across from you, or your wife or your husband are still like next to you, or you could phone up your mother and she's like answers the phone. Like, that's the stuff that actually matters, like real life. Like, can you hang out with your best friend later today? If you could answer yes to that question, then that's 100 times more valuable than any investment you'll ever make.
Mm. So speaking of real life, Jordan, I've got to ask you, you introduce a lot of your shows, you know, welcome to the Matrix. What do you think this is all about? This is a big picture here, right? With specifically around the concept of the Matrix, or are we in a simulation? Just give us your thoughts on this.
On this reality?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're in a big like cosmic joke. Like, I think like if there was a creator, it was looking at this like a big
humor.
Yeah, great sense of humor. Great sense of humor. I mean, I think even on the level of those who study the people who run our world, you know, like whether you want to call them good people, bad people, politicians, whatever word you want to use, you know, I don't want to get too deep into that, but what I would look at it as is it's just levels of consciousness. Like, you notice that the more conscious expansion you have, the less care you have about materialism, the less care you have about drama, the less fear you have, you know. And I think one of the things that's really beautiful about the experience of life is we get to go through all of these layers of consciousness. We get to go from being a child, where we're the most pure and we're the most full of wonder. You know, like I look at a kid or I look at an animal and I'm like just jealous. I'm like, oh my God, they're having the time of their life. Like, I get 100 emails a day from people who I know are not having the time of their life. They're anxious, they're worried, they're stressed. They're like, what do I do with this or that? The market's falling today. And I'm just like, you're suffering, you know, like what we should do is we should try to just become a little bit more okay with everything that's going on. So I think, like, regardless of what our reality is, whether it's 100% real and we do have free will, or whether it is a matrix simulation and there's 1,000 versions of Sean, Maggie, and Jordan having this exact interview right now in alternate timelines, you know, like whatever it is. All I would say to people, though, is like, just don't forget that the only thing that does matter is what you decide to do with your reality. Like, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to be somebody that's going to be love-based and help your community and bring light to your family and friends? Or are you going to be somebody who's jealous and hates on people and, you know, gossips and doesn't get anything done with your reality? So it doesn't really matter what we're doing necessarily. It's all about what our intent is, and are we passionate? Does it have meaning? And are we doing it for the betterment of our species?
Yeah, good words. Think about your thoughts, as you say.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. Maggie, any other questions before we maybe look at a couple of charts?
Just something that I was thinking about, or I've read, you know, about the Gematria and how it's communicated to the world, but, you know, 99% of the population don't even, you know, look at it. But when I say communicated, it can be communicated through newspapers. Do you believe in that thought? I'll give you an example. I don't normally read the Daily Mail, which is a trashy newspaper from the UK. I think they have a US version. I've actually blocked it off my PC. I do have it on my phone for when I have those slightly addictive moments. But there was an article yesterday, it was talking about the full moon. So of course I was kind of trying to look at it from a Gematria point of view. But I did think it was quite interesting that, well, first of all, when I opened it up, it said 222 shares. It already had 222 shares.
Yeah, nice.
And 21 comments. So I thought, oh, 21 million Bitcoin. And then as I read into the article, it was talking about the full moon in America, etc. And then it highlighted in, bold, Hawaii as going to experience the biggest part of the full moon, 97%. So it used 97%. Wow. So when I looked at so of course I had to get onto the Gematria. It's like, why have they highlighted it in bold? And Hawaii has 111, 111 in its reverse ordinal, but New York has it in its 111 in its English ordinal. And I thought, oh, okay. And then sun and moon together has 111 in its English ordinal. And I thought, oh, maybe there's a connection there. And there's a message that it's trying to get out to those who are awake as opposed to those who are asleep and not really understand.
Yeah, that's a great observation, and that's a good way to use the code, to essentially just kind of look through what the key points are and start to type them into a Gematria calculator and see what utility it has. But the very last thing you said, Maggie, I think is important. Can you repeat the last thing you said? Actually, you said it's the communication between those who are like awake or those who are asleep, right? Is that what you said?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I'll tell you something that I think is really important. Those who are awake don't read the news.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the people who are really, really in a stage of enlightenment where they no longer worry about what's going on outside of their immediate reality. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of differing perspectives on what Gematria is all about. Some people out there believe that everything is 100% like natural coded. There's no human intervention whatsoever, meaning there was a human who wrote this article and maybe they had the intentions behind writing it the way they did to make the numbers and everything connect on purpose to manipulate our reality. You know what I mean? There's also people out there who do decoding and they talk about how the sports are rigged by Gematria, right? And I'm not here to deny any of this. I'm just kind of, for your audience to see how Gematria might be used on the main stage. So my work in particular, I don't look at it through either of those lenses. I'm just here to help people make the best humans is really safe to be using Gematria for, because this adds an element of randomness that is almost impossible to predict. So for those people out there that are using Gematria for sports, you're going to see why it fails so much. It has so much failure to it because these are humans, and there'd be no possible way to organize all these players, all the coaches, everyone to have such insane outcomes. But also at the end of the day, you can absolutely rig the World Series because it's the most important game. It's the one that matters the most. If anyone around the world watches a game or a sport or a fight, it's typically the biggest, most important one. Like, I don't know shit about the UFC, but when Conor McGregor's fighting, everyone wants to talk about it. You know what I mean? But there's like 1,000 UFC fights every week. So for the world's elite to time every single UFC fight to be with Gematria it's impossible. Now, are there anomalies where certain things just happen? Like if you study Conor McGregor's fight against Poirier, you're going to see the numbers. You're going to see the numbers. It was like 33 wins on the 33rd year of his 33rd year of age, and Poirier had 33rd fight. So it was like their 33rd fight going against the 33rd win, both at the age of 33. Like there's just some things that you can't deny. Like they're fixing this to all happen, and it's quite easy to organize this because these guys only fight like one time every year or so, right? So yeah, the idea here of how it's all being manipulated, it's fascinating because that's what I'm trying to do with my work. Like I'll take Beaver full moon or snow moon or whatever the name of this upcoming full moon is, and I'll do my best with everything else that I'm working with to see like, what is this going to do? What is this going to create? You know? And is it coincidence that we're getting a $56,000 Bitcoin on the full moon when ISIS equals 56? And it's pretty much the last important full moon we're going to have for the rest of, for the whole bull run until 2021. Well, that might be my opinion, but needless to say, like I told everyone before, I see December new moon being the highs for Bitcoin. And then something I didn't say was I feel that the January new moon will be the highs for the altcoins, because the way that the market ends is this liquidity typically flows into the altcoins. So that's a separate conversation. But yeah, I mean, Hawaii, just one last note, Hawaii gives us the 51 and the 15, and that those numbers come back to moon.
Right, yeah.
Gematria.
Okay. And then I refreshed it 30 minutes later, the article, because I thought, I'll just see, how many shares and comment. And it was 420 shares and 24 comments. I was like,
Yeah, these numbers are like, you could even see it too when you start to decode some of these really powerful people, and like when their net worth changes, like when Elon Musk's net worth changes to something, it's always correlated with some other numbers that are going on in his life.
I mean, I thought the 42, well, 420, because then I took the zero away. Because it goes back to the planets again, and that's what I was thinking about. 42.
Well, Honolulu, which is the capital of Hawaii, gives you 42 in the Chaldean cipher. So yeah, it's all code.
Yeah. Okay. And then I did have a question from a friend in the UK, and since I got her into all of this, I mean, she was into crypto anyway, but I particularly got her into your work. She keeps seeing triple numbers, like she's always seeing 222, 333, 444, and 777. Those are the triples that she keeps seeing. Is that something that's subconsciously manifested, do you reckon? Or I don't know, or is it just some random coincidence that she keeps seeing those?
Well, she should definitely look into decoding herself more. Like, most of the time your big numbers that show up in your life, for like, let's just say when you had an age that something profound happened, like your first kid, or the year you got married, or whatever, like when big things happen in your life, it's typically correlated to the years, or the numbers, just the numbers of your reality. So if you start playing around with the Gematria calculator more, and you type in your full name, you type in the city and country where you're born, the hospital you were born in, like I started decoding myself more. And the guy who created the hospital that I was born in has the same exact Gematria as my name.
Wow.
And this was in the year like 1880 something, right? Okay. But then what gets even crazier is when I take from the day that the hospital opened up and put my date numerology, it's the same numerology.
Oh, right. I thought you were going to say he was your great grandfather or something. But anyway,
no, I don't.
Kidding.
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. Well, my grandma was born in Italy, so that wouldn't even be possible. But yeah, so I mean, it's like it's pretty crazy to think about how all these. So yeah, the reason why this needs to be considered before she or you or anyone else sees these triple numbers or double numbers, like they might be showing up in your code and they're telling you something. Especially the double numbers. Like if you're seeing 22, 20, like 33, 44, you start to get some meaning behind those numbers. And the way that you could learn more about numbers would be studying Hebrew. So go study the Hebrew meaning of 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 9. And then anything after 9 is essentially just 1 and 0. And then you repeat the process. Go study the 369, the importance of 369. They call it the Tesla code, which I think is a little offensive because Tesla isn't even a real person. Like they just made this guy up and they give him so much power. But anyways, like a lot of people don't know that, but it's just, I wish they didn't give this guy so much credit for shit that essentially existed back in ancient Egyptian and Sumerian times. But that's a whole other conversation. A lot of people get pretty angry about that, but it's just truth.
Wow, interesting. So shall we go on to some tokens, coins, Sean, to cover? Shall we do that? As soon as it's, I've hijacked the interview again. I did that last time.
Okay, Maggie's coins. What have you got, Maggie?
Okay. I was looking at, okay, you haven't covered Bitcoin Cash, have you, in any of your decodes?
I've covered it in a couple of my podcasts that I do for my Patreon. So yeah, I've done it a bunch. I really don't like the way that chart looks. It's like really profoundly, yeah, I mean, it's just not a good performer. And I feel bad about it because a lot of people out there that are like, what are they called? Psychics. Like a lot of psychics that are into crypto right now are really onto this coin and they're pushing it pretty hard. But the chart is telling me otherwise. It's a really bad chart.
And is that kind of in the short term or just forever? It's doomed, because the highest it ever went was 3,000, I think, back in 2017. So.
Well, you know, one thing I would consider right now that we have to like, we're in a different bull run right now than the last bull run with regards to altcoins, right? So right now, if you were to go to coin market cap, you're going to see how many altcoins exist in this market. And a lot of them actually go, oh my God, actually, that's crazy. So there's 14,443 altcoins right now. But it's just funny how we were talking about that 144 earlier and that showed up. Anyways, so yeah, there's 14,000 altcoins. Can you name like 20 of them real quick? Probably not, right?
Bitcoin,
like, I mean,
the altcoins themselves. Okay.
Like what I'm trying to say is it's such a ridiculously diluted bubble, like in a sense, like there's too much and it's all useless. And we're at a time right now where there's a lot of unsophisticated players in this game and they're chasing projects that have a lot of like FOMO ability. And Bitcoin Cash doesn't exist in that because it's an OG coin. Like these OG coins like Dash and you know, even Ethereum Classic, like they're fine and all, like they're not the worst investments ever. But if you were to look at the dip back in the pandemic for Bitcoin Cash and you were to measure that to where we are right now, Bitcoin Cash is only up 270%, right? But if you go from the pandemic lows and then you measure to where Bitcoin is right now, Bitcoin is up 1,000%. So you would have been better off just investing in Bitcoin. And Bitcoin's not even an altcoin. Altcoins have way more returns than Bitcoin has. So I think it's just a coin that maybe if somebody has been holding it for a long time and they want to continue to, like, by all means, but I rather focus on other things.
Right. And so an exchange that's had a lot of controversy recently is Binance. So I'm kind of quite interested in Binance coin because it was doing really well for a time and then it really pulled back because of the fact that, for example, you can't use Binance exchange here in Singapore. And I think you can.
Oh, really?
No, yeah, they banned it a couple of months ago. So everyone had to move their tokens off and everyone's gone to FTX, I think, in this part of the world, because we can't get BYBIT in Singapore, not even on VPN, or you'd have to lie, but I'm not going to do that living in Singapore. so I can't get onto BYBIT, which I know you like to use as part of your trade.
Well, I use Binance.us and for most of my selling, and then for trading I use BYBIT for sure. BYBIT's great.
What's your thoughts on BNB, the token itself at this stage? What do you think?
I agree with you. It had an incredible performance, but I believe the reason why was because that performance was going on during the year of the ox in China, and the ox is the bull.
Okay.
But now it's actually doing pretty awesome. Like it's gotten back to prior all-time highs in maybe 7 or 8 days ago.
Yeah.
It does look a little double top like, which as an analyst, I would be worried. I always get worried when I see a coin come up a little bit lower than its prior high. That's called a lower high. So when you have a lower high plus like a double top structure, that's weakness. That means that there's not enough push into price discovery, and definitely some things to be considered there. You know, there's this thing floating around in the TA circle where people say like, show me a new high, I'll show you a buy. I think that's the worst advice I've ever heard in my life.
Okay.
Because when you look at charts and you see these double tops come in, that means you're basically buying the top a secondary time when you could have just been buying dips. Like you always want to buy red candles, you always want to buy dips. But I've heard many analysts who have big YouTube channels, 100,000 plus subscribers, throw around that term, show me a new high, I'll show you a buy. And I'm like, no. Worst advice.
Okay, I have one more token, and then Sean can throw in his Energey Web token. What are your thoughts on that of late? I know you have covered it once.
Yeah, I believe I did cover that a couple times in Red Pill episodes. I mean, it's looking all right. Like it's holding its trading range. Anyone who's into Wyckoff method, I believe, would be able to see some structure in this coin. Like you could essentially see that going back to about August of 2020, which is a pretty long time ago by now. You know, we're looking at over almost 500 days of this trading range playing out. And yeah, I mean, it's just very sideways. I think it had a lot of juice to it from the pandemic because everything was reset during the pandemic. Like if you remember, pretty much every altcoin went to new lows, right? Except for maybe like a couple rare, but for the most part, any coin that was on exchanges prior to the pandemic, they all hit brand new lows, and then they all did very well. So yeah, I mean, that coin had its moment, it had its time to shine, but now it's very sideways, and I don't really see it as much of an opportunity. I believe a lot of people who are into the Internet of Things, like quantum financial conversation, they find a lot of merit in this Energey web token thing, but I never actually invested in it just because I didn't like the chart. I didn't like the way it was looking structurally.
Okay. Over to you, Sean.
Yeah, speaking of charts, shall we have a look at where we're at
On Bitcoin?
Sure.
Yeah. I don't want to put you on the spot, Jordan, but I watched your last few shows. You've been unbelievably accurate.
Yeah. Do you mean you want me to pull up a chart?
Yeah, if you could. Yep.
Yeah, let me try to see if it will let me screen share my. You guys just let me know.
Yep.
I think we're sitting right on the 55 moving average at the moment, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, you're probably correct by that. So I'm at the point right now where technically if we were to close the daily tonight below the 55, that's pretty awful.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing right now is the New York Stock Exchange closed and they immediately started shorting Bitcoin. So once that stock exchange closed, I believe it was probably like the transition of 5. So yeah, we're pretty much seeing that once we got to that time there, you could see 4 p.m. it just started going red pretty fast, and I wouldn't even be surprised if like we saw another shakeout into tomorrow, just because of the day of the full moon. Whenever we're looking at these charts, we have the closures are coming in, and it's pushing the chart into a following day even before we hit midnight in New York. So for you guys who are on the other side of the world, it's like ultra confusing because it's like we get our daily close at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the market runs on New York time, and then you're a day ahead. So it's quite confusing stuff. But yeah, this market's definitely looking there's problems, and I'll show you the problems. One, the low that we had on October 28th should have been the lowest low we had. We were holding higher lows right here 2 days ago, and then now we're actually pushing through that. And the next trading range we have here is slightly above the 702 fib. The 702 fib is a very like normal layer to come back to and retest. So if we're gonna really shake people out, that's probably the level we're gonna come back to. And yeah, so we can also see on my chart that I have the moons pulled up. I have the moons pulled up and fibs. I could remove these fibs to help you see a little bit more when we were talking about the moons. So there you go. And you could see that on every black circle, which is a new moon, we're getting tops, and every pullback, we're getting those white circles, the full moons. And if you go to Trading View and you set up your chart by default and you go over here to indicators and you try adding in the moon phases, you're going to see it's called right here, moon phases. You could just type it in. Whenever you're going to add this to your chart, it's actually going to look the opposite of the way I have it set up. It's going to be the complete opposite. So I've gone ahead and set it up so that the black circles are new moons and the white circles are full moons, and that the energy that's red colored is from a new moon moving into a full moon from left to right, kind of like the way time moves. So it's funny the way they set up that lunar cycle. Whoever's the programmer, like the developer, they kind of did it in a weird way. But just so people know, if they watch this video and they want to add this indicator, you should consider flipping it to look the way that I have it, because it's a lot easier to understand. Essentially, when we're green, we're moving up, and whenever we have any red, we're moving down. And there's exceptions. There's always going to be exceptions, because you need to consider a lot of other things. You need to consider the week of the year, the zodiac we're in. Like, it's crazy. You'd have to watch a lot of my content to really wrap your head around it. But yeah, so where I see this market going is, we have an eclipse tomorrow, so anything goes. Every time we get these eclipses, we get very big shakeout energy it's almost unpredictable. So I really can't give too much information besides that and the stuff that I talked about in my video today. This is it's a very rare occurrence. Like I told you earlier, I think it's the longest eclipse in 200 plus years. So this is the first time in all of our lifetimes that we're having an eclipse that has brought this much energy. And yeah, so, but is there any questions you have, like things that I didn't cover?
Maggie?
I mean, gosh, we could go on for hours, but I think in terms of what we wanted to discuss today, yeah, you've definitely covered a great area. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, I wish there was more to add with TA, but it's hard with this time of the cycle. You know, one thing I could quickly say is we are probably going to be held on top of this golden pocket, like this 786 to 618 is called the Fibonacci golden pocket. We're probably going to hold that, but anytime we're using this Bollinger Bands indicator, anytime that we're swiping below the Bollinger Bands, that's typically a really solid opportunity for longs. So again, that's not financial advice. That's not me telling people what to do, but this Bollinger Bands indicator is really solid for knowing when we have top side resistance and when we have bottom side support. And whenever we are getting overextended in either direction, it's typically when we're getting overheated. So I'm sure if you compared what's happening today with our RSI, you're going to start to see some things going on. Like RSI is holding structure, but 30's RSI is crazy low for being in a bull run. You know, every time Bitcoin dips down to these levels, it essentially just gets bought back up. So today's like a gift. Like for people who want to accumulate altcoins, especially because these altcoins are getting hit, you know.
But you did say that earlier this week, Jordan, about the fact that, you know, we may go down as low. Well, I think you were saying at 57, but we may even go down a bit lower than that. Where are we? We're at 56 at the moment. No, lower than 50.
Yeah. So, well, I was bringing up 57.5 as like a key area, and I wasn't anticipating us going much more below that. But at the end of the day, man, like we're in crypto, this stuff has a lot of leverage, and these, like, you know, what's funny too is the people who run the economy, they print money.
Yeah.
They print money and they put it wherever they want. Like the Federal Reserve admits on a weekly basis that they're just printing money and sending it to the New York Stock Exchange. You could go on the Fred website and go look that up yourself. They're just giving money away to them to have fun with.
It's like a never buying the dip, aren't they?
Well, you know, in Wall Street, you don't really need to worry about dips because it's just forever money. Like they're just going off of bull run bear market, you know, and to them, these players that are running the world, like I said, they print money. So they don't care where the market goes. They just push it in whatever direction it needs to go if that's the case. You know, so it's a lot of money that's in this market now because of Bitcoin becoming popular and crypto getting popular during the end of a bull run. But it's still a tiny asset class when you're looking at all things considered, like bonds and other things. I mean, where's Bitcoin at now? It's still below $1 trillion market cap, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's below I think it needs to get to 63,000 in order to be at $1 trillion. So but you know, what's funny about it being $1 trillion is that it has a higher market cap than Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase. It has a higher market cap than most commercial banks. It's pretty, you know, all things that I said before. On a retail perspective, Bitcoin's actually doing pretty amazing when it comes to market cap.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's from me. Thank you very much for all of that. Really appreciate your time and generosity sharing all this information. Sean, do you want to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jordan, if you could tell our audience where they can find you if they want to learn more about your methods.
Yeah, of course. So I have a YouTube channel, Waters Above Crypto. And then I also have a Patreon, which is patreon.com/watersabove. And there is a place where I do a lot of conversation about altcoins and more exclusive content on my YouTube videos. I typically cover Coin, Ethereum, XRP. I try to keep it kind of just on the market leaders mostly. And then with my Patreon, I'll do a weekly podcast every week where I go over a bunch of altcoins that the members actually select. So that's pretty fun to be able to do. And here and there, I'll give Gematria decodes and more exclusive stuff. And it also gives access to a Discord, which has almost like 3,000 people now, which is pretty amazing to see the community grow so big. So in that Discord, we have, you know, a bunch of other members. We're decoding stuff, talking about life, sharing music we like, crypto stuff, like all that. So for anyone who's like heard what I talked about today and like this kind of conversation, you know, there's going to be thousands of people in that community that you could talk with this stuff about and learn more. And then I actually just made a website where I sell my courses. So for anyone who's interested in actually like trying to learn this and implement this, I have a website, watersabovecrypto.com.
And Jordan, if you don't mind me saying so, because I mean, I bought both of your courses and I bought the advanced course.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I have to say the advanced course is brilliant. It's exactly how I like things to be, very logical, systematic, methodical. You explain things really, really well. And what I also like is the fact that in your Discord, you've got another section for people who are really solidly into crypto and you know, quite serious about it and really studying it hard. And they're so generous. They're always sort of sharing their information. Of course, you know, to the viewers out there, you have to pay that extra, which I think is $88 a month, but it is well worth it. So yeah, well done for the advanced course.
Yeah, thank you so much. That Trading Wolves is what it's called. And
Yes.
It is, yeah, it's a higher barrier of entry. And the purpose for that is because I want there to be the right type of person in it. And I want people that actually like kind of are in this to learn a skill. And I'm a little worried right now about all these Telegram groups and all this, you know, leverage trading discords, and people are losing a lot of money right now because of this stuff. So I want people that actually are getting into this to learn, not just kind of showing up and they want to be told what to do. You know, there's nothing worse than joining having people join a community and they're just asking the same question over and over again. So the reason why they're being so nice and they're so helpful is because all the people that joined are like on the same vibe. You know, we're on the same like stream of consciousness. We're actually trying to help each other to become better traders. You know, because this market isn't going anywhere. We're just getting started. Like crypto is the future. We're in the very baby stages. So I kind of thought about releasing this before the end of the bull run so that people can prepare themselves for a multi-year downtrend, you know, where hodlers, people who are holding coins, they're not going to make any money. Yeah. But those traders out there, they're able to actually they're able to make money in a bull run or a bear market.
Yeah. Excellent.
So in summary, huge date, a matter of hours away. We've got our beaver moon, the red moon coming up, so named by the, I believe it was a Native American thing where they would go beaver hunting. Is that correct? Is that what we got coming up in a few hours? I might be wrong. It is a beaver moon, I'm sure of that.
It is a beaver moon, and it is coming up in a few hours on USA side. We're already in that full moon. Here in Asia, it started at 6 a.m. this morning, and you're 5 hours ahead, Sean. So, and sorry, not 6 a.m. this morning. We're going to get it 4 o'clock this afternoon. UK, it will be 6 a.m. So that if you're looking at it from a timing perspective, that's kind of where it's happening.
And
it's
then,
not,
I mean, 4th of December is the new moon. So we're got a big month of action coming up by the look of it.
Yeah, well, hopefully. I mean, historically, in the last two bull runs of 2017 and 2013, that's what Bitcoin did. It went straight up into that new moon after the full moon of November. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm really wondering how this is all going to shake out, because there is so much going on in our world, guys. You know, like there's a lot of things. This is the first time a world has ever been locked down like this. You know, there's just it's unfathomable how much change we're experiencing as a species, how much we're having to comply with, you know, all that jazz. But I want people to remember that anything's possible, you know, like anything is possible, and stay safe and and be grateful. You know, if we do go up and we do see these crazy prices, like, congratulations, you know, be grateful. And if it doesn't turn out how we think and there's an extended cycle, then whatever, you know, we just have to take what the market gives us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Links below to Jordan's content, people. If you like what you've heard today, go check it out. Thank you very much, sir. Really enjoyed having you on again. You're always welcome back here. And Maggie, thank you for arranging everything for us. It's
You're welcome. I don't mind getting up at 5:30 in the morning to be here with you boys.
I really appreciate you guys. I really appreciate you guys having me on for a second time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. No, we're grateful to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks very much. I hope you enjoyed this content, people, and we'll see you all again tomorrow. Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.